Greetings, Dr. Schultz and fellow classmates. For this week's discussion board, we were instructed to look at the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson, one of the most recognizable founding fathers, left an incredible legacy. Dr. Schultz mentioned in this week's lecture that he was considered one of the Virginia Triumvirate, with George Washington as the sword of the Revolution, Patrick Henry as the voice of the Revolution, and Thomas Jefferson as the pen of the Revolution. However, this legacy has slowly shifted since the American Revolution. It has shifted in multiple ways, but for today's discussion, I'm going to focus on the separation of church and state and his views on slavery. First, a quick background on Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was born 13 April 1743 in the colony of Virginia. In his youth, he was a lawyer and became a delegate to the Virginia House of Burgesses in 1769. In 1775, he was appointed a delegate to the Second Continental Congress, where his contribution as a drafter of the Declaration of Independence cemented his legacy as a founding father. He went on to become the second governor of Virginia, the United States Minister to France, the first United States Secretary of State, the second Vice President of the U.S., and the third President of the United States. After retiring from public life, he founded the University of Virginia in 1819. Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826. Incidentally, hours before John Adams, a fellow founding father and friend, who remarked, "Jefferson survives." While Jefferson held private religious views that align with Christianity, barring his rejection of the Trinity as incomprehensible jargon, two documents authored by Jefferson have become the linchpin in the high and impregnable wall of separation between church and state debates in the 20th and 21st century. The documents are Bill number 82, or the Statute for Establishing Religious Freedom, authored while Jefferson was in state legislature, and in a letter written to the Danbury Baptist Association of Connecticut while he was president. In the Danbury letter, Jefferson states, "I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between the church and state." The Statute of Religious Freedoms disestablished the Anglican Church and essentially ruled the state had no matters over private conscience. Daniel Dreisbach says in his article, "A New Perspective on Jefferson's Views on Church and State Relations," for a century and a half, the Jefferson image has been shaped and reshaped to serve contemporary objectives or conform to modern ideals. Utilizing only these two documents to view Jefferson's ideas on church and state relations has neglected to view the holistic approach Jefferson had and takes his influence and writings out of context. For example, there were 4 other bills that Jefferson authored that show a more moderate opinion on the relationship between church and state. Also, based on his actions as the governor of Virginia, the Danbury letter seems to allude that as the federal government, a relationship between the church and state would be inappropriate. However, at the state's level, the relationship would be more appropriate. Another area that Jefferson's legacy has changed is the fact that he owned slaves, which includes the famous controversy surrounding Jefferson and Sally Hemings, a female slave, and if he had an affair and fathered her children. A portion of this change is due to the recent past attempt to villainize all those who participated in slavery-based economy and the belief that their relationship to slavery tarnishes all their contributions to the country. Jefferson believed in gradual emancipation as he thought that slavery was harmful both to the slaves as well as to the masters, maintaining that slavery was like holding a wolf by the ear and we can neither hold him nor safely let him go. While Jefferson believed that slaves, as human beings, had innate human rights, he also believed they were mentally and physically inferior, like the prevailing thoughts of the period. He supported colonization for freed slaves, as he believed whites and blacks were two separate nations that could not live together peacefully. Jefferson did free multiple slaves during his lifetime, and more were freed upon his death. The fact that Jefferson owned slaves and brought forth no great emancipation efforts leads his detractors to degrade his sentiments that all men were created equal. Jefferson, in the end, was able to ensure that future generations would know what he hoped his legacy would be. The epitaph for his gravestone, which he wrote, reads, "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. He wished to be remembered for his views on liberty, religious freedom, and education."